Ooh. How could you possibly walk through children, two kids with a gun, and point it to another person that's holding the child? That's sad. That's really sad. So I mean, I just don't know what could have possibly driven her to that point. I understand people have breaking points, but not to the point where you want to end someone's life, because once they're dead, they're dead.
In the late hours of July 7, 2023, a confrontation turned deadly when a Sidechick kills a 6-month pregnant woman for having a baby by her boyfriend. At around 7 p.m., Birmingham police rushed to the scene, responding to what would soon be described as one of the city's most shocking crimes.
Right now, the Birmingham Police Department is on the scene of a person shot who has suffered life-threatening injuries. Just before 7 p.m., North Precinct officers were dispatched to a person call at an apartment complex in the 3200 block of 17th Avenue North.
Just moments prior, the two women crossed paths at an apartment complex and got into a heated argument. But what was more tragic? The 36-year-old, 6-month pregnant mother of 5 wasn't alone. Not only was her other children present on the scene, but she was carrying her 2-year-old when she was shot at by the Sidechick, right in front of her young children. A horrifying act that not only ended her life, but also claimed the life of her unborn child. But little did anyone know what unfolded that Friday evening would not only shatter one family, but also set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Sadly, this isn't the first time we've had to tell a story like this. Think back to a 38-week pregnant woman who was killed for revealing a wrong baby gender.
Okay, hey, I'm the mama, and I think it's gonna be a boy.
What's going on? It's your boy Sosa. I'm the daddy. I'm Team Girl, you feel me? Team Girl, it's a girl, I already know it, man. You feel me?
If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly encourage you to watch. The parallels are chilling. I will leave the link at the end of this video. Now, let's look at the life and tragic death of Justina Wallace.
Where did that
Come to my motherfucking shit, you gon' get laid down, you understand?
Justina Zanola Wallace was born in 1987 and raised in Boynton Beach, Florida. Growing up, she was known for her infectious energy and her ability to bring people together. She had a supportive family and strong ties to her community. She attended Boynton Beach Community High School, where she was outgoing and well-liked by her classmates. Even after high school, Justina enrolled at Miles College in Alabama, hoping to further her education. Though life circumstances led her to drop her studies, she never gave up on the idea of returning. In fact, just before the tragedy struck, she had re-enrolled at Miles College to pursue a degree in business management. Her ultimate dream was to open her own boutique, combining her love for fashion with her vision of creating financial stability for her children. For Justina, her boutique represented more than a business. It symbolized independence, growth, and a better future. By the time she moved to Alabama, 36-year-old Justina was a proud mother of 5. Motherhood became her driving force. She was determined to give her children the opportunities she never had, and every decision she made was with them in mind. Those who knew her said she sacrificed endlessly, often putting her own needs aside to ensure her children were cared for. Despite her responsibilities, she still made time to laugh, to celebrate, and to remind her kids how deeply loved they were. Friends and family described her as vibrant, loyal, and full of life. She had a personality and a natural ability to light up a room with her presence. To many, Justina embodied resilience. She had endured struggles, but instead of allowing them to define her, she used them as fuel to keep moving forward. In this post here, she wrote, "It was more than just words on a screen. It was a reflection of what she wanted most in life. She longed for love that wasn't flawless, but real. The kind of love that showed effort and loyalty. Posts like these gave a glimpse into her heart and into the battles she faced behind closed doors. But while her role as a mother was steady, her personal life was far more complicated. She found herself entangled in a tense relationship with another woman, one who was also tied to her through the same man. This rivalry would soon escalate with tragic consequences. The other woman was 21-year-old Anaya Nowden.
Show yourself, then show what you be f***ing.
Just like Justina, she was also pregnant at the time. And like Justina, she had children fathered by the same man. This fragile connection created a volatile dynamic, one that quickly grew from quiet resentment into outright hostility. Anaya was much younger than Justina, still navigating adulthood while trying to raise her children. Friends described her as outspoken, fiery, and someone who didn't back down from conflict. She had dreams of her own, wanting stability, a better life for her kids, and to be recognized as more than just someone caught in a complicated love triangle. But with her youth and temperament, she was often quick to react when she felt disrespected. The tension between the two women played out publicly, most especially on social media. Each felt betrayed and belittled, each determined not to be made a fool in front of others. At first, it seemed as though the rivalry might remain confined to arguments and harsh words, but as emotions festered and outside voices fueled the fire, the situation began to spiral beyond control, setting the stage for a tragedy no one could have imagined. On July 7th, 2023 at around 7 p.m., Justina and Anaya crossed paths at an apartment complex. At the time, Justina was heavily pregnant with her sixth child. The encounter quickly escalated into a loud, raw, and deeply personal argument. Both women hurled accusations, blaming each other for having children by the same man, and as neighbors whispered, possibly both being pregnant by him again, their shouting echoed through the complex, drawing attention from nearby residents. Neighbors could hear every word of the heated exchange, and some even began recording on their phones, unaware that they were capturing the final moments of Justina's life. But what began as a verbal dispute quickly escalated. Anaya drew a gun, pointed it directly at Justina. But the most chilling part was that Justina wasn't alone. She was holding her 2-year-old daughter, Sky, in her arms, and her 2 sons stood only feet away, forced to witness the horror that was about to unfold. Right at that moment, the confrontation transformed from a bitter argument into something irreversible. Anaya, without a second thought, fired the gun, and Justina was struck. Still clutching little Sky in her arms, she staggered a few steps before collapsing to the ground. The sound of the gunfire was quickly replaced by heart-wrenching screams of her children, their cries piercing the air. Neighbors rushed forward in shock, horrified that such brutal violence had unfolded in plain sight and, worse, in front of young children who could do nothing but stand frozen, watching their mother fall. Panic rippled through the crowd as some tried to shield the children from the scene, while others frantically called 911, desperate for help that was already too late. First responders arrived within minutes. Birmingham Fire and Rescue Service worked quickly to stabilize Justina and rushed her to UAB Hospital.
Just before 7 p.m., North Precinct officers were dispatched to a person called at an apartment complex in the 3200 block of 17th Avenue North. Officers arrived on scene at the complex when they observed an adult female victim lying unresponsive, suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. Birmingham Fire and Rescue personnel arrived on scene and then transported the victim to UAB Hospital. Sadly, she has suffered life-threatening injuries.
Doctors fought tirelessly through the night, but her injuries were too severe. On July 8th, 36-year-old Justina Wallace was pronounced dead. The loss was devastating. Not only had her children lost their mother, but the unborn child she carried had also been taken in the violence. For her family, it was a double tragedy that words could barely capture. Meanwhile, as police secured the scene, they immediately detained Anaya, who was still present when officers arrived. Investigators began pulling together the pieces of what really happened that night, and what they discovered left the community shaken. Detectives interviewed neighbors, bystanders, and Justina's family members. They spoke with the children who had witnessed the shooting, as well as the father who connected both women. Each testimony painted the same picture. This had started as an argument, one fueled by jealousy and rivalry, but it ended in cold, deliberate violence. But the case would take a darker turn. In a post-Miranda statement, Anaya admitted she had seen Justina holding her child and carrying nothing else in her hands when she fired the gun. This admission undercut any suggestion that she had acted in self-defense. Anaya was taken to First Birmingham City Jail before being transferred to Jefferson County Jail. The charge was capital murder in the presence of a child, a crime that carries some of the harshest penalties in Alabama, potentially carrying a life sentence in prison without parole or even the death penalty. But the case did not stop there. Prosecutors soon added the possibility of a second capital murder charge for the death of Justina's unborn child. This meant Anaya could now face 2 counts of capital murder, both equally severe, and together representing the enormity of what had been lost. But her case was complicated. She was also pregnant and dealing with health conditions, including high blood pressure and preeclampsia. Her defense claimed she was locked up for 23 hours a day and placed near inmates with severe mental health challenges, raising questions about her safety. The defense insisted she belonged outside the jail while awaiting trial, but prosecutors were firm. Jail officials reported her condition as stable and confirmed that she was receiving appropriate medical treatment on the jail's medical floor. The risks cited by the defense, they argued, were not enough to justify releasing a woman facing such serious charges. Jefferson County Judge Alaric May agreed. The request for bond was denied. Anaya would remain in custody until trial. The news of Justina's death spread quickly through Birmingham, sparking both heartbreak and outrage. For Justina's sister, Shamari, the loss was beyond comprehension.
How could you possibly walk through children, 2 kids with a gun, and point it to another person that's holding the child? That's sad. That's really sad. So I just don't know what could have possibly driven her to that point. I understand people have breaking points, but not to the point where you want to end someone's life, because once they're dead, they're dead.
She spoke of the long hours waiting at the hospital, desperate for updates after her sister was rushed into surgery. Hope slowly faded as the family realized they were not just losing Justina, but also the unborn child she carried. But the most devastating part? The trauma left behind for Justina's children. They had been only feet away during the shooting. Her toddler, Sky, had been in her arms when the bullet struck. Children so young to witness their mother's final moments was something the family feared would haunt them for life. But just when the family thought the pain could not grow any deeper, a bitter reminder arrived only days later. Sky's second birthday came just days after her mother's death. Friends and relatives insisted the celebration should continue, believing Justina would have wanted her daughter's life honored in grief. The gathering was filled with balloons, presents, and a birthday cake decorated with Justina's picture. Children laughed and played, but beneath the smiles, there was a profound sadness. Sky blew out her candles surrounded by loved ones, but without the mother who had always been at her side. It was a moment that underscored the cruelty of what had happened. The little girl's milestone was forever marked by the memory of her mother's violent death. The truth, however, was that Sky and her siblings would not face their future alone. The Birmingham community rallied quickly around the Wallace family. Neighbors, church members, and even strangers stepped forward to provide meals, financial support, and childcare. Advocacy groups that worked with survivors of domestic violence also spoke out, using Justina's story as a painful reminder of how dangerous volatile disputes can become when weapons are present.
When you take lives, you don't just take their lives, you take the lives of everybody.
Social media amplified the call. Posts honoring Justina spread across platforms, many using her name to raise awareness about domestic violence and gun violence. For every family member who struggled to explain her absence, there were dozens of supporters standing ready to help. But despite the comfort of the community, the looming legal battle meant that the family's fight was far from over. Prosecutors made it clear they intended to pursue the most serious penalties available. On one side, prosecutors built their case on clear, devastating evidence. Anaya had admitted she saw Justina holding her toddler and no weapon at the time of the shooting. The presence of multiple children, combined with her own admission, left little room for doubt. On the other side, the defense began shaping an argument about self-defense. They claimed the dispute between the two women had escalated and that Anaya feared for her own safety, despite her own admission that Justina had been holding her toddler and nothing else. It was a fragile claim, one that clashed with eyewitness accounts, video evidence, and her recorded statement. Still, under Alabama law, the burden would rest on the prosecution to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the shooting was not justified. Meanwhile, all eyes turned to the courtroom with 2 potential counts of capital murder. one for Justina, and one for her unborn child. The stakes could not have been higher. Alabama law allows prosecutors to seek the death penalty in such cases, though no decision had yet been made about pursuing it. And until a verdict was reached, Justina's family would be forced to relive the tragedy again and again. What happens there would also determine whether Anaya would ever walk free again. In early July 2020, Justina's loved ones gathered to say their final goodbyes. The service was filled with music, flowers, and stories of the woman she had been.
We love you, Justina. We love you, Justina. We love you, Justina. Release your balloons.
Let them go, yeah.
Friends remembered her vibrant energy, her laughter, and her determination to provide a better life for her children. Family members spoke of her devotion as a mother.
She loved forever. Even in her passing, God is still using her as a light unto this world.
Her dreams of finishing her degree and her plans to open her own business. Her children were at the center of every memory shared. Each story circled back to how much they meant to her and how deeply she had lived for them. But the most heartbreaking part of the ceremony was not in the words spoken, it was in the absence felt. An unborn child who would never take their first breath, a 2-year-old who had been cradled in her arms during her last moments, and 5 siblings who would grow up carrying scars no child should bear. At the time of writing this story, the case against 21-year-old Anaya Nowden remains pending. The prosecution continues to prepare evidence while the defense signals it will fight under the banner of self-defense. The possibility of 2 capital murder charges looms heavily. If convicted, Anaya would spend the rest of her life in prison or face the ultimate penalty. For Justina's family, the legal outcome matters, but it will never erase the pain of what happened. Their focus now is on raising her children, ensuring they have the support and love they need to move forward. Community members have stepped up with donations, childcare, and counseling resources, but the road ahead is long, and healing will take years. Justina's death is not just a story of one woman, it is the story of many. It is a reminder of how fragile life is when jealousy, conflict, and violence collide. It is a warning about the devastating impact of gun violence, especially when children are caught in the middle. My condolences to the family during this difficult time. May you find strength, comfort, and peace in the love and support surrounding you as you await justice. What do you think? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.